Oh, what's up? Just getting some mad gains. I'm rolling the GE and the barbells. Huber Swell here, book reviews. That's right, today's book, Maze Runner, by James Dashner. So first, we gotta talk about the author. His name? James Dashner. Now, James Dashner, he was what you would call a sexual harasser. He was born in the 70s, he was a Mormon, and he was like, you know, I'm gonna write a book about a post-apocalyptic situation, just because. So he wrote this book, The Maze Runner. Then he got arrested. So that's James Dashner, that's the author. Now come on, boys. Alright, so we gotta talk about the main character. The main character of this book, his name is Thomas. His name is Thomas, right? Now Thomas is just this average, everyday, you know, edgy teen boy who's like, oh no, how did I end up in a Hunger Games genre novel? And he's like, wait a minute, I don't even remember anything. I'm stuck in this post-apocalyptic world. What am I doing here? What's going on? Why are there all these other random boys here? Where's the females, man? Where's the females? That's what he wants to know. He's just like a basic kid. He's got like the brown hair. He's supposed to be like 12 years old, but of course they made a movie of it and made him like 17 because, you know, you can't have preteens doing things in movies. That's James Dashner material right there. So that's your main character, Thomas. You don't really get much else about him because he doesn't remember anything. So you got some other characters. You got Teresa. She's a female who just shows up at some point and she's like, oh, why am I here? Why are none of you females? What's going on? And everyone's kind of confused, like, uh-oh, Thomas, he did something. He's bringing about the end of the world. What are we gonna do about that? I don't know, I don't care, I just want to solve this maze. We'll get to that maze in a second. As the title would suggest, someone's gonna be running those mazes. And plot twist, it's both Thomas and Teresa. So we got the plot, right? So, as I mentioned before, Thomas, he just wakes up. He's in a little cage thing. Uh-oh, why am I in a cage? Why would I be in a cage? Normal, average, everyday kids aren't in a cage. And so he's like, wait a minute, I'm awake, help. He gets let out of this cage, and it's a bunch of these people. There's Mean Ho, and there's Newt, there's Albie, yes, all these other people who are part of the government of this whole situation. They call it the Glade. It's this little field area that's like a swamp, and there's a thing, and there's no nature because they just be living there, surviving things. And there's like what do they call it? There's a maze that surrounds the entire region, and no one knows how to solve this maze. They're like, we've been trying to solve this maze for like 500 days now. A whole 500 days we've been trying to solve this maze. We've got no evidence, not even a single lead as to how to solve this maze. And then Thomas shows up and he's like, yeah, I want to go and try to solve the maze. And everyone's like, yeah, duh. It's the Maze Runner. We're trying to solve the maze. The hell else do you think we're doing? And so he's like, I'm gonna solve the maze! So then they're like, no, you're not gonna solve the maze. And then some spooky things happen where these fluffy glob monster things called, what are they called? It starts with a CH. Doing some good cited research for a second here. Grievers! They're called Grievers! So this glob monster called a Griever is out there, and it kills one of the people. And then everyone's like, oh no, you don't want to get stung by one of those grievers. And he's like, why don't you want to get stung by one of those grievers? And everyone's like, oh, you just don't want to know. And they give you that whole BS whenever they're trying to, lead you on to something that they don't really tell you, and they make all the characters act unnaturally, unlikely to explain things. It's basically about 50% of this book is just other characters telling Thomas to shut up for asking so many questions. But everything gets even more questionable whenever suddenly the next day Teresa shows up, and Teresa's got some kind of telepathy thing going on with Thomas. She's like, I can read into your mind, Thomas. And Thomas is like, why? And Teresa's like, I don't know, I just can. So then they just start talking to each other and they start having like a thing. She's the only female there and everyone's like, hey, we gotta kill her. And they're like, no, don't kill her. Can you keep her as a prisoner and feed her to the grievers or whatever? Teresa's all like, oh no, I'm stuck in this prison cell. What am I gonna do? And then Thomas is like, I'm gonna do something random and that makes other people either gain or lose confidence in me and cause a trial between all the leaders of the various parts of the community. So he does that, and then there's this big trial happening and everyone's all freaking out like, oh no, this guy's a crazy person, we gotta get rid of him. And this one guy's like, no, we should make him the leader of the maze runners. And you're like, oh! Boom! And then suddenly Thomas and Teresa go out and they're like, wait a minute, we figured out the maze. There's just a little invisible hole at the end. You just gotta jump through. And so then they get a bunch of people and they jump through. And then they press a button and then suddenly the whole thing is just kaflooey. Everything just goes back to normal. Like, wow. But they realize, what's back to normal? It's not good. It's a big post-apocalyptic world and they meet the creator of the whole thing. It was just like, like an analogy to parents, essentially, just like some nerdy scientist people who are like, we created you and you're our experiment. You did a very good job. And then suddenly they all just get murdered by a bunch of random terrorists and they get put on a bus and they get driven out of the facility and they're like, wow, it's a post-apocalyptic world out there. Why do we even do this? And that's the end. To prove my point further, I'm going to go through not just one, but a myriad of, small tidbits of quotes from this book that just explain how Thomas's curiosity is just shunned by all the members of the Glade. So we got, he just showed up. We got, dude, come here, just take a look.
Where am I? Thomas asked, surprised at hearing the voice for the first time in his salvageable memory. Didn't sound quite right, higher than he would have imagined. Nowhere good, says the dark-skinned boy. Just slim yourself nice and calm. Oh yeah, he must have asked something else. It's a long story, Shank. Piece by piece you'll learn. I'll be taking you on the tour tomorrow. Till then, just don't break anything.
Wow, that was a lot of explanation right there. Thanks, Albie.
Then tell me,
Thomas called out, struggling to keep his voice even.
Tell me the long story.
And Albie glanced at the friends closest to him, rolling his eyes.
Seriously,
he said, giving up on the show of courage.
Where am I?
Albie walked over to him and sat down cross-legged. Blah, blah, blah. If you ain't scared, you ain't human. Act any different and I'd throw you off the cliff, because it'd mean you're a psycho.
The cliff?
Thomas asked, blood draining from his face.
Shuck it,
Albie said.
Ain't no way to start these conversations. You get me? We don't kill Shanks like you here. I promise. Just try to avoid being killed, survive, whatever.
And that basically goes on for about half the book. He's just like,
why am I here? Please help me.
And everyone's just like, shut up! You don't deserve anything. Alright, so if I had to make a style analogy for The Maze Runner by James Dashner, comparing the style of this to some other element of the universe, I would probably compare the maze runner to just like, you know, a kindergarten classroom. Like you got all these raving lunatics, and all they can ask is why, 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 and you don't get any answers because, you know, the teacher's just like, I want to go home, I want to take a nap. You, what are you asking? Why? What's the cliff? And then the teacher's just like, you want me to throw you off the cliff? Well, we don't kill saints like you! And if I had to make an animal comparison for the main character that being Thomas, I would probably say Thomas is... an octopus. Thomas is an octopus because they put the octopi, it's octopodes. That's the real way to make the plural. That's what linguistics gets you. Whenever an octopus is put inside of like a cage or whatever, they're super smart, so they just like figure out how to get out of the cage. And you got Thomas, and he's just gets slapped into this maze, and then he appears after nobody else is able to do anything about it, and then he just pops in and he's like, I'm gonna solve the maze! And then he does. He just slides on out of there, doing things that, you know, would seem pretty obvious to a typical human being, but obviously none of the people in here were the Mary Sue level character that Thomas is, so they couldn't figure out how to get out. And so, you know, once he found the pretty obvious solution, then he just kind of squeezes out of there with all his tentacles and stuff, like an octopus.
In 3, 2.
Freddie Benson!
So if I had to declare whether this book is a good book or not, and that being on the scale from trash to meh, I would probably rate The Maze Runner by James Dashner as a meh. Although it does follow nearly every trope of that early 2010s young teen drama book type of storyline, it's actually slightly enjoyable to read. And I mean, when I slightly enjoy something that's being read on a set of papers, you know, that's a win. Good work, James Dashner. Have fun in jail.
Yeah, we got Freddie Benson up in here.
And thanks for 100 subscribers. You as well. Signing off.